Hey everyone, Retire on Dividends here. Back to make another different type of video, maybe possibly a no series. But I've been getting questions about, what is the least risky ETF or the safest ETF in order to, essentially keep your NAV appreciation while still obtaining a respectable yield. So I thought about something, and obviously YieldMax now offers so many damn funds, it's really hard to keep track of. But I thought about, because obviously they sell covered calls. All YieldMax funds sell covered calls on a weekly basis. So it matters. Look at that. Oh, I didn't even know that. The inverse does the opposite. They flip the freaking symbol. That's pretty cool. Fiat, yeah, they do it the other way. Do you guys know that? That's pretty cool. Lazy at the same time, but pretty cool. Anyway, so what I was thinking is, since they sell covered calls on a weekly basis, what really matters? What matters is the fluctuation of the underlying stock and how much it moves week in and week out. Does it move, plus or minus, 5%? Does it stay below 5%? Why do I say 5%? Because 5%, is maybe a safe number. If it does go above, the 5% change, then typically, unless it's very volatile, they're not going to be able to capture, the full upside. So what I did was I didn't see there's T. What I did was I put together a spreadsheet, and I'll show you in a second, but I put together a spreadsheet, and now what I'm doing is I'm tracking how many times the underlying went above or below 5% on a weekly basis. So first tab here, you see TSLY weekly, obviously it's called. So what I'm doing is I'm capturing the change from Friday close to the next Friday close, and I'm showing how much the price went up or down. In the first row 2, it shows 11.25.22 to 12.2.22. This is because, they launched. This is the first full week of their launch of TSLY. So obviously I'm tracking the change of Tesla because that's what they sell covered calls on. So the very first week, you'll see, okay, the change on column E, it went up 6.56%. So I have columns to the right, F, G, and H, Tesla under 5%, Tesla over 5%, Tesla 5% change total. So what this does is, if you look at column G, Tesla over 5%, yes, number one. So that's 1 week where it changed above 5%. And then the next row, it changed below 5%. So it went down 8%, which obviously is greater than negative 5%. So it did change 5% there. And then the next 2 weeks, 16% down, 18% down. Obviously, that shows you, they did not launch at a great time. And what I did is I also highlighted, anything with a change above 10%, and I'll show you why in a second. But for the most part, I'm tracking how many times each fund has changed more than 5%. So I did that for Tesla. Okay, Tesla launched around November 22. I did that for Coney, who launched around August 23. I did that for NVDA, who launched May of 23. I did that for MSTR, who launched February of 24. And I did it for AMZY, who launched July of 23. Okay, so AMZY's underlying Amazon, MSTR's underlying MSTR, NVIDIA's underlying NVIDIA, Coney's underlying is Coin, and then Tesla's underlying is Tesla. So now here is the results. So here's Tesla. They have had 98 weeks since they launched, again, plus or minus. Within those 98 weeks, Tesla went, under 5% change. It went well, I'll say it dropped 5% or more 22 times. It went above 5% or more 26 times, okay? So out of the 98 weeks, it went under 20 and under 5% 22% of the time, and it went over 5% 26% of the time. So basically 48.98% of the time it went up or down 5% minimum. So approximately 50% of the time Tesla moves up or down 5%. Now, Tesla covered calls, we track it, right? Some weeks they could be above 5%, but more than likely they're around the 5% range. And I've used 5% for all of these, but again, keep in mind some of these are more volatile. Some of these they can go up higher than 5%. Some of these they have to go lower. So another thing I captured just for to keep getting an idea, the implied volatility of Tesla is 60%. So again, it's very high right now. This is not the norm. Sometimes, mostly it's around 50%. So I'm just going to show you 50% of the time, Tesla goes up 5% or down 5%. Now let's do the same thing with Coin. Coin, Coney had about 60 weeks. So within those 60 weeks, it went under 5% 16 times. It went over 5% 21 times. So in total, it went above or below 5% 61% of the time. Again, this has a higher volatility than Tesla, 84% at the moment. But still, overall, 61%, that's high. Again, this just shows, these types of funds, yes, they could be super risky. But when the movement is, what really matters is the over 5%. Why over 5%? It's because they're not going to capture the full upside, right? And that's why I highlighted anything above 10, because we'll look at that at the end. But let's continue. NVDA, they've been around about 75 weeks. NVIDIA has, at least. They went under 5% 9 times. They went over 5% 25 times. So they have a 45% ratio. 45% of the time they go above or below 5%. That's a lot too. Their IV is 46%. So again, this one moves crazy as well. So their IV right now is, they're typically the same IV as Tesla. Tesla's really high right now because they had their recent event and they have earnings coming up. MSTR, Bitcoin's been moving, so their IV is super high, but let's take a look at their numbers. 11 times they went under 5%. 13 times they went above 5%. Again, they've been out about 33 weeks. So of those 33 weeks, 72% of the time, they went up or down 5%, which is crazy. That's a lot. But obviously this fund performs very well because they typically go much higher than 5% out of the money. Now this one is very interesting, and this is the one I wanted you guys to see. So AMZY is considered one of the safe ones, right? So AMZY's been around 63 weeks. Of those 63 weeks, Amazon has only been down below 5% change 4 weeks of that. And then above 5%, 6 weeks of that. So a total of 15% of those 63 weeks, it went up or down 5%. Their IV is 37%. So obviously, an IV of 37% as compared to 46% of NVIDIA, they shift 15% of the time. NVIDIA shifts 45% of the time. This gives you an idea of, what you may feel a little safer to be in, right? Because in a covered call, especially if they're selling covered calls on a weekly basis, you don't want to be in a fund that can jump up that high in 1 week. Of course, it could happen. Like you see with Amazon, it happened 6 times. It went over 5% in a week. But that's over a 63-week time frame. So it happens. But, to look at this, oh my God, it happened, 33% of the time on NVIDIA, 39% of the time on MSTR, 35% of the time of Coin, 26% of the time of Tesla. But again, it just shows you, if you really wanted to control the NAV and get a better idea of how to essentially monitor the funds that are a little more stable and don't move as much, This is a good example of one that doesn't. Now, one other thing, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to show you how many times does it go below 10% or above 10%. So look at above 10% is really the problem. So Tesla, look at this week. It went up 33%. Oh my God. So that's bad. Let's see. I mean, when it goes down more than 10%, yes, that sucks too. But keep in mind, there is no downside protection. The upside, they can go up with the stock, but they are capped. So if you look, 10%, 14% above 1 week, 10%, 10%, those are the weeks where they kind of lose out on that upside. 14%, 27% June of 24, which is pretty recent. So yeah, that's kind of why Tesla kind of struggles. Have coin look up 21%, 16, 15, 18, couple big weeks here. They were definitely capped. Coney's been struggling recently, and the problem is they have big weeks like this. They'll go up 26% 1 week, and then they'll drop 8% the next week. So unfortunately, they'll drop the full 8%, plus or minus their premium earned. But the 26%, obviously, they're probably capped and lost out on about, 19, 20% of that. So then there's other weeks, big green weeks, 18%, 10%, 12%. So again, you don't want to see that. NVDA, here we go, same thing, up 10%, 24%. A little less though, up 11%, 15%, 15%. They're pretty, dangerous as well with that. Not as frequent though, it doesn't seem, at least the 10% range. Misty, oh my God. Look when they launched. Good Lord. Did they launch at the right time? Yeah, I would think so. I didn't even realize this until I just looked at it now. The first week, they went up 57 freaking percent. Holy crap. The second week, 30. Oh my God. Wow. 34%. Yeah. But MSTR is a little different. Their IV is so high that they could sell covered calls 10% out of the money, and they could still make the income that they need. So that's why I put the IV in that picture on the pivot. Now let's look at Amazon. All right, any big weeks? Anything above or below 10%? No, not a one. Since July of 23, I don't see one change plus or minus 10%. That is truly amazing, and that's why AMZY has been able to be stable. You see a couple 8%. Okay, that was probably a rough week, but not too many. That was 8%, 6%, 8%. Wow. This is why AMZY is safe, safe as in for the YieldMax funds. There's obviously safer investment options outside of AMZY. But if you want to yield like 20, 30, 40%, and have a safe quote-unquote fund, AMZY is a great freaking option. And this just shows it. Again, is 5% the right number to use? I don't know. You guys tell me. But I wanted to make this video to show you guys, how many weeks since these funds have launched, how many weeks has the underlying had a shift of 5% plus or minus. So now you have an idea. And I did the 5 funds that I cover first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to leave down in the comments below what 5 should I do next. Because I'll make this a series. I'll do it maybe once every 2 weeks, once every month, whatever you guys want. I'll add 5 new funds each time. So I covered the big 5 that I talk about all the time. Why not start with these, right? And I figured, okay, what's next? Well, what's next is what you guys want to see. So comment down below. You can put one fund, or you could put all 5, and rank them in order of the one you want. And then I'll take a look at the comments, and then I'll add those funds, whatever's popular. I'll add those funds into the next video, and we'll talk about it. And we will compare to these, right? I'll keep these up. We'll do a side-by-side comparison, and we'll see, okay, how does Tesla compare to this one? How does Coney compare to that one? But again, there's a lot of YieldMax funds now, so I'm not going to do, the inverse is pointless, because all it is it's the same underlying. So please don't list the inverse, and please don't list the fund of funds, and please don't list Ulti. I want you to list covered call ETFs, which has one underlying. So we can look at that one underlying and see, how much it has moved, plus or minus. Especially, again, 5% is the number. We could always change it later on, but for now it's 5%. If we want to go through all the funds with the 5%, add all the funds, and then make another video of 3%, we could do that. That could be interesting. But for now, it's 5%. So if you can, leave in the comments down below the next 5 funds I should cover, and then we'll go from there. As always, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. This video is for fun and entertainment. So hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you're entertained. If not, we will try again next time, whenever that is. Again, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever. But let me know via the like button if you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be like a short series, we'll call it. You can let me know via the comments as well. I just thought this was something interesting based on what someone had asked me on the Discord. It just gave me an idea. I forget who the person was and I forget the question, but I apologize for that. But it just made me think, like, how many times has it done this? I thought Tesla would be much worse, to be honest, than what it was. So, shout out to Tesla for being a little better than I thought. But yeah, it's still not great, 50%, man. It's because their IV is usually, sometimes I've seen as 40%, 40, 50% IV. Right now it's super high, so they're able to capture a decent amount of upside, which is good. All right, guys, that's all I really got for today. Like I said, leave down in the comments below the next 5 funds I should add, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys? All right, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Later.